Well, happy Friday. Welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Well, let's go. No, let's not go. We're not going. I'm clicking. Oh, someone turned the studio audience off. That's so bizarre. Well, here's the good news. The good news is it's Friday. The bad news is I'm broke.
It's Friday, and I'm broke.
And I know it's the beginning of the month, and we just got paid, and we should have money. But the house payment comes out, car payment comes out. I'm already broke. I'm already broke for 2 weeks. Better not be show.
Don't come till next week.
It's a tough one though, but I will act like I'm rich. All weekend, hanging out at the soccer field, watching my stocks dive, watching your 401k go down in flames, or your IRA, whatever you got going on. Yeah, the market's not liking it thus far. That's our top story of the day, is the economy, because we have the fun situation here where all these other headlines, some of them are important in their own right, but they don't directly affect you like the economy does. Now, do they? So in this one, S&P's down again today, a little over 5% right now. Market hadn't closed yet. Market didn't close for another hour or so. And so we are now clearly in correction territory for two of the three big indices. And I believe NASDAQ has officially crossed into bear territory. I don't know if it's going to close there, but I'll be giving an update about halfway through the show when the market closes. We'll probably touch on this again. So I like talking about this headline, though, because this is an intelligent conversation. This isn't a conversation that's beyond like the shallow, can you believe what Kim Kardashian was wearing on the red carpet type stuff, or even some of these other situations like what happened in Frisco, or the junior high viral video fight that happened in Bedford. I mean, that is heartbreaking, emotional, make you cry kind of stuff, but doesn't affect your wallet. This stuff does. So let's review what's happened so far. Liberation Day was Monday. A bunch of new tariffs were announced, and I think they went into effect overnight at midnight. And so yesterday, markets took a bloodbath. Today, another bloodbath. But it's not all bad news. What we've already had, and you have to sort of weed through the headlines to see some of this stuff, is Vietnam. Vietnam has said they have already offered to cut tariffs on America to zero. And it's, there's a little more nuance than that. If I look at this report, let's see where I first see this. This headline was from Breitbart. It says President Donald Trump announced that Vietnam wants to drop tariffs on U.S. goods entirely if a deal can be struck between the countries. Trump revealed the major development following a phone call with the General Secretary of Vietnam's Communist Party, To Lam. And it's not toe like at the end of your foot. It's just T-O, and then not lamb like a small sheep. It's L-A-M. Vietnamese name sounds so cool. Sounds like they're Jedis. Yeah, I was just negotiating with To Lam. So there's some positive news there. Another piece of positive news is the jobs report came out today. And this is something that happens the first Friday of every month, unless it's like the first or second, as long as they have a couple days to do the math. That's when you find out the unemployment report from the previous month. So now that we're in April, we saw March, and it's a mixed bag. The unemployment rate did tick up to 4.2%, and that's a big 0.1% jump. It's still in the wrong direction, but not totally unexpected, seeing as how many people just have been given pink slips just in D.C. But the job creation blew expectations away. It wasn't a barn-burning report, but compared to what the expectations were, it was really good. So there's some positive signs there. However, the big ones that if you can't help yourself and you have to look at your 401k and your IRA and you're indexed on this, you're having a bad time. Now, I would like to go ahead and not blame the victim here, but say if you are clutching your chest like Fred Sanford when you see your IRA, if you're taking too much of a loss when the market turns down, then you have some pretty poor allocations out there. And I don't blame you. You probably hadn't spent a whole lot of time thinking about it or kind of strategically diversifying your stocks here. But if you're unhappy with the performance of your portfolio in the last, month or so, you're probably overweighted in stocks. You probably need to move some of that to different asset classes and sort of cycle through so something's always doing good. And I'm not just talking about the stock bond split. There's a lot of other things that maybe we could talk about in depth on future shows. But that's where we're at financially right now. And I'll keep an eye on the financial news, but you can't trust the guys that are saying that this is it. It's catastrophe. It's Sodom and Gomorrah. It's going to be fire and brimstone raining from the sky, because these are the same people that told you this time last year, that Joe Biden was sharp as a tack. Remember that guy? Are these the same people that made the economic predictions that told you the Inflation Reduction Act would reduce inflation? Because they were wrong on that one. Are these the same economic brain trust that told you the Obama stimulus plan, we had to pass that so unemployment wouldn't get above 9%, but it got above 10% after we passed it? If they get all these other predictions wrong, why would you worry about this one? And I'm not saying they are wrong or are right, and there might be a recession, but these guys don't know. You can't trust them. They're going to say that. They're going to say whatever they think helps the narrative. And I'm just surprised these people have a job at this point. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. The question is, are you getting a little worried? The question is, do you really think this is a temporary bump in the road? We're just going to hit some speed bumps, maybe a couple potholes, and we'll take off like a rocket as soon as this all sorts itself out? Or is this the beginning of the next Great Recession? 800-288-9227. I'll go a little more in depth about what I think, and you'll hear from E.J. Antoni from the Heritage Foundation coming up next. But also want to hear from you. 800-288-9227. Be an economic prognosticator on The James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey, homeowners here in North Texas, look around. You see all those clouds? You see how dark it is in the middle of the day? Yeah, those are storms. They're coming. There's going to be like 3 more waves of storms before the weekend's over. And then if you are missing any shingles, or you hear any funny noises, or you get a lot of high wind, or something bangs into your roof, or a tree branch, or anything, if you have the smallest doubt, it makes sense to get Blue Ribbon DFW .com to come out and look at your roof, because the inspection is free. James Parker here for Blue Ribbon Roofing. And that's the key there. There's no downside. Either you go out and you get some pros, a family-owned business, to come out and check and find out if you have a problem. And if you don't, you get a high five, and then you can have the peace of mind when your head hits the pillow, you can go to sleep not worrying about your roof. But if you delay, if you wait, and these storms do cause a problem, just the smallest leak could explode into some huge, exponentially more expensive repairs if you don't get on it as soon as possible. So as soon as these storms blow over this weekend, I want you to go ahead and call BlueRibbonDFW.com. Go to BlueRibbonDFW.com. Check out all the 5-star Google reviews that have been given to John and Tish and Trevor over the years. And don't just trust me and Casey and Bob over on the ticket. Go to BlueRibbonDFW.com, look at the reviews yourself, and know that you're working with a family business. Been here for 31 years. Hopefully they'll be here for 31 more. And you have someone you can trust on something as important as your house. BlueRibbonDFW.com, BlueRibbonDFW.com. Hey there, happy Friday. Welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. My next guest is going to help us sort out what's going on with the economy with some mixed information there. E.J. and Tony, welcome back from the Heritage Foundation. How's it going?
Oh, it's been a week.
Yeah, it's been a week. All right, so I think right now we have more bad news than good news, but the good news is there is some good news. Let's start with that. The jobs report. It was a modest expectation, and we did beat modest expectations, but generally speaking, it's a pretty positive report this morning.
It was, and even after you consider the previous 2 months had large downward revisions, even with that, it was still a slight beat to expectations. So, yeah, overall, solid report. Hey, look, this was the first time, the first time since the last Trump administration that we had 2 consecutive months where jobs in the federal government actually declined. That's a really good thing. Under Biden, the government grew like gangbusters and the private sector did not. We're finally starting to see at least that trend reverse. So again, that's a good thing. Solid report overall.
Okay, so other positive news, just starting with the positive stuff first. Vietnam had a phone call with Donald Trump this morning, and he said it looks like they're ready to negotiate lower tariffs. And so are we already getting some movement on negotiating some of these tariff walls down?
We are, as a matter of fact. And actually, even before the tariffs were announced, you had a couple of nations who said, hey, look, we want to come to the table. And that has accelerated to a certain extent after the tariffs were announced. So, again, those are very positive signs, especially in the sea of red that we've had the last couple of days. It's nice to have some good news.
Any other good news before we get to the bad?
I think probably the biggest piece of good news, in all sincerity, is just the fact that we finally have a president who's willing to fight for the American people. Now, you can argue that he's using a hatchet where a scalpel is called for. I get that. But at least we finally have somebody who's willing to do some cutting, right? He's willing to stand up and fight. He's willing to take some blows. So these are really good things. And I think it's worth emphasizing that the problem here that we're facing, I think, is that we need to make tweaks, not that everything is wrong.
Okay, so let's look at the bad. The markets are down around 5% across the board today. That's not good. That's followed another day where there was quite a bloodbath. Is this just a temporary pothole, EJ and Tony?
I think that depends on whether or not the policy mistakes that have been made this week are just temporary, or if they stay in place. This was not the reciprocal reciprocal tariffs, you could say, that we were promised. This is something very different. And so, again, I think if we get back to that idea of reciprocal tariffs, which only punish bad actors and reward good actors on the international stage, things that are going to punish China, a currency manipulator, they subsidize their industry, they use slave labor. You name it, every kind of illegal trade book or a trade trick in the book they use, right? I want to punish nations like that, not give them a middle-of-the-road tariff rate, which is what happened this week. So, again, if we can tweak this to where we're actually focusing on the bad actors and punishing them and not punishing everybody else, that would be a huge win. And I think that's the kind of thing that markets are really looking for before we get back into a buying mood.
Well, I haven't heard that angle. Give me an example of the misplaced punishment.
Well, right after Israel announces that they're going to drop their trade barriers, we turn around and slap them with a 17% tariff. That doesn't really make any sense. Now, I understand plenty of people were really mad when they found out Israel had any trade barriers on us at all, given how much we helped them out. So, totally understand that. I get it. But at the same time, Israel is just one of many countries who are now acting in good faith, and we turn around and punished anyway. Conversely, again, China is the biggest currency manipulator of all. They are the biggest subsidizer of industry of all, and
right.
they have huge tariff and non-tariff barriers, like things like quotas on American products, especially American agriculture. And so that has been a huge blow, not just to the factory worker, but to the farmer as well in this country. And instead of giving them the highest tariff rate, which is what should have happened probably, they got a middle-of-the-road tariff rate. It was roughly the average what all the other countries are getting. And so that is indicative that this rollout was not targeted at nations' tariff and non-tariff barriers. Instead, all they looked at was the trade deficit that we have with these countries, and they didn't even look at the whole trade deficit. They just looked at the good side of the equation, in other words, product. They ignored services. So we have countries on this list, for example, that we just slapped with punitively high tariffs, who we don't even have a trade deficit with them. We only have a goods deficit. So let's say, we sell them computers and, we buy computers from them, let's say, but we sell them financial services in exchange. In fact, we sell them much more than we buy from them. So
it doesn't show up on paper, does it?
Surplus.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, it doesn't show up on paper in terms of products. It does in terms of overall trade. But for some reason, the people who came up with this list are fixated on the product side of this equation and not the actual economic issues.
Well, that's a nice level of depth. Thank you very much, E.J. Antoni from Heritage Foundation. How do we find your work online, sir?
Best place to find me is going to be on X, and the handle there is @RealEJAntoni.
Thank you very much. Coming up next, we're going to jump in the Wayback Machine. I brought the DeLorean today. We're going to go back to 1996 and see what some of the people right now who are decrying tariffs as the destruction and self-immolation of the U.S. economy, what were they saying about tariffs? What were they saying about trade imbalances with China in 1996? You'll hear from Nancy Pelosi, the ghost of Nancy Pelosi, next on The James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Bongino. Yeah, I know. I was going to do it. Welcome to the James Show. Happy Friday. It's News Talk 820 WBAP now on FM at 93.3. So when you have a Friday and you're going into a weekend and the weather's kind of gloomy like this and it's raining, but you still know that you're about to have some fun because it's Friday. You don't have to go to work tomorrow or for real work. Some of us still have chores and stuff to do. Fridays like this where it's kind of gloomy, but you're still happy to get off. It's not like a total big party. It's not like the old... It's not a party like that. It's a little more of a laid back, like the theme from Simon and Simon. This is how like rainy Fridays feel like. Well, here we go. It's not perfect. Might get our shoes a little muddy this weekend, but we're still gonna have some fun, right? Don't you think this is kind of like what this Friday feels like? The Simon and Simon theme. Garrett has no idea what Simon and Simon. Have you ever even heard of Simon and Simon? You don't know what it is? No. No, not Simon and Garfunkel. It was Gerald McCraney. He was in like Major Dad and stuff. And another guy named Jamison Parker. Jamison Parker. That sounds familiar. I can't put my finger on it, though. All right, back to the economy talk here. 800-288-9227. I'm asking you, do you think this is just a minor pothole and we're resetting for an economic takeoff, or are we crashing the economy and just walking right into the fire? 800-288-9227. Tyler in Fort Worth, you're on WBAP. What do you think, sir?
Hey, James. I'm actually calling to pick apart your brain. You know, before I was listening to your show, I didn't even know about Austrian economics. So I have a huge, limited knowledge of economy. So I want to give some context, and feel free to pick me apart after.
Oh, man, this warms my heart. I am honored to be the first person to introduce to you Austrian economics, because when it was introduced to me, I was so mad because I took economics in college and I thought I knew stuff, and I was saying things publicly that I thought I knew to be true. And then when I, actually found out that I didn't learn economics, I learned Keynesian economics. They just told you that was the law of the world, like it was gravity or whatever. I didn't even know there were really other schools of thought to pursue, and this is where I ended up. So, yeah, go ahead and question.
Yeah, so like jumping back a few years, COVID, my house went from 300,000 to 650,000. The stock market since then has been climbing to like 40,000 points. Eggs went to $9 a carton, etc. It just feels like it's more than just supply and demand, and it doesn't help that they culled so many birds right for the egg cartons. It doesn't make sense to me other than like our dollar weakening. Like what's happening to the market right now feels like a course correction for the American dollar, and that the stock market itself is just inflated like the dollar. Like how does it get back to egg cartons being 25 cents?
It won't.
How does it go back? Go ahead.
Oh, hang on. The short answer is it won't. Hang on. We have a breaking weather alert. We got to go to Brad Barton real quick, and I will return to you, Tyler. Do not go anywhere, but when breaking news happens, we got to jump in on WBAP. Okay, we're back live here. We return to Tyler in Fort Worth. We're talking about just the general economic tenor and discussion that is happening around the larger tariff talk and really the market shedding 5% today. If you have any time to be interested in economics, this is it. So where were we, Tyler? You had a next question?
Yeah, we were talking about like, hey, is the stock market inflated? It's at 40,000. Is it just course correcting? I've heard that term thrown around a few times.
Okay, so eggs are never going to go back down. The price of everything is not going to go back down. I mean, with some exceptions, like TVs or whatever, you may get some, but generally speaking, the price isn't going to go down. If we stop inflation, then prices will stop going up. That's the best case scenario we can hope for, especially under a fiat currency. Now, when you start going down the rabbit hole and so many of these other issues that happen in society, you find out how many of them have an economic backstop, and it's about 2/3, if not 4/5. And so then when you really want to go read all the books and watch all the videos and listen to the podcast, the answer for so many of our problems is return to the gold standard and end the Fed. That's the shortcut. There's 1,000 steps in between that, but that's where you keep ending up when you go down these rabbit holes.
Okay, but what's the difference between American GDP and the stock market? And is the stock market just global GDP? Well,
stock market is a very vague term. When you talk at the Dow, you're just talking about the top 30 stocks. When you're talking about the S&P 500, it's the top 50 stocks. So you're not really asking how's the economy doing. You're asking how's our biggest 30 companies doing. When you look at the Dow or the S&P, how's our biggest 500 companies doing? And generally speaking, that's kind of a decent measure on how the economy is doing overall, because they tend to move in tandem. But that's an incomplete picture. So also you got to keep in mind that for every one of these drops that any of these markets have done, NASDAQ, S&P, Dow, it always comes back, and it always comes back bigger. It's just on a long enough time scale. How long is this dip going to last? We haven't ever had a crash from which we didn't recover, from where we've had to do the Argentinian style reset the currency, or Mexico has to do that every once in a while. We haven't had to do that. We will if we don't course correct. We're subject to the same foibles of inflating your currency too much and getting too much national debt, more so than you can cover. And look, that's what killed the Roman Empire 3 different times. That's what killed the Persian Empire. It's what killed the British Empire, the Spanish Empire, and we're headed for it next. It's just sort of the natural business cycle of how human beings like to repeat the stupid mistakes of their predecessors, probably because they don't know them.
All right.
All right, so if you're new on this path, there's an audio book of Henry Hazlitt's Economics in One Lesson. It's for free on YouTube. It's like 6-7 hours. I know that's a big ask, but listen to that. Listen to the Evan Say It, How Modern Liberals Think, and then you'll understand half of the stuff on this show.
Okay, cool. So Henry Hazlitt and Evan Say It?
Yeah, you know what? If you send me an email or Facebook message, I'll respond with the links. I had to do that for someone yesterday. They were asking me.
Okay, what's your email again?
James@wbap.com.
Hey, James@wbap.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Tyler in Fort Worth. All right, coming up next, you're going to hear Nancy Pelosi's 1996 economic discussion, kind of like what Tyler was looking for about trade imbalances, tariff imbalances, more specifically with China. And we'll see, does she sound more right now or then? Because I think this is a temporary blip, and in 1 year, we're not even going to be talking about this anymore. What do you think? 800-288-9227. Economic history lesson next on The James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey, hockey fans. I know you're probably happy with that Stars game last night. They absolutely crushed Nashville. And so if you want to add a little bit more fun to another excellent postseason run that the Stars are about to embark upon here, I'm telling you, add the Prize Picks app. You can go in. And even if Dallas isn't your team, maybe you're an Ovechkin fan, all you got to do is look at his statistic, 2.5 shots on goal. Will he get more or less in their game tonight against the Blackhawks? But you can see what Ratnan's doing. 2.5 shots on goal. Will he get more or less. And then boom, you already have a lineup. You do that for 2 to 6 players. You can win up to 1,000 times your cash with Prize Picks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. Over 10 million active users, over $1 billion in prizes awarded. I got some of that last night. Thank you, Stars. And you can join in on the fun too. And you can try it out with our money. Download the Prize Picks app. Use promo code WBAP. Get $50 with your first $5 play. So why not? Nothing to lose. Download the Prize Picks app. $5 play will get you $50 in promo cash, but you have to use the promo code. It's the name of this station, WBAP. Prize Picks. Run your game. Hey there, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Today, stocks are down again, but the jobs are up. Tariffs are in effect. Are the Trump tariffs wrecking the economy, or are they fixing it? I love having these economic discussions here. I love it because they're so consequential. And I love being able to take something that is a passion of mine, but that's not shared by so many other media outlets because it's not sexy. It's not cool. It doesn't involve anything that's too overly emotional. Like, you got to save the children or racism or sexism or anything like that. But this is stuff that affects you far more than any of these other air quotes sexy topics. So let's go ahead and study here. I mean, one of the things you can use to measure a platform or a person or a politician or, some guy like me, a radio host. Are they saying the same thing day after day, year after year? Or do they change? Do they shift? Do they say opposite things? And if they ever do, and a lot of people do, is there a good explanation for that? Or is it just based on plain old silly, shallow politics? Is there a philosophical underpinning to their beliefs? Or are they just saying what they think their constituents want to hear? So today we're going to go back in today's time machine. We're setting the flux capacitor to 1996. Nancy Pelosi's on the floor of the House of Representatives before she was Speaker. And she's like, I don't know, she looks like she's about maybe 50 in this. And I even had to comment to Garrett. I was like, I feel really gross about how pretty I think she is. And then I was reminded, if you've ever seen pictures of Nancy Pelosi from like the 60s, I know this sounds dumb. Don't hate me. Don't hate me. She was kind of pretty. She was real pretty, actually. What happened in the meantime, I don't know. Let's leave that out of it, though. But the difference is stark from 1996 to now. Here's Nancy Pelosi talking about China, trade, tariffs, all that good stuff.
How far does China have to go? How much more repression? How big a trade deficit and loss of jobs for the American worker? And how much more dangerous proliferation has to exist before members of this House of Representatives will say, I will not endorse the status quo. As I mentioned, it's about jobs, proliferation, and human rights. And there are those who say we shouldn't link human rights and trade and proliferation and trade. I disagree. But if we just want to take up this issue on the basis of economics alone, indeed, China should not receive most favored nation status for several reasons that I'd like to go into now. I'd like to call the attention of our colleagues to this chart on the status quo that the business community is asking each and every one of us to endorse today.
All right, on this chart is a spelling out of the trade deficits and the tariffs between China exports and U.S. imports and vice versa.
Right now, we have a $34 billion trade deficit with China, the 1995 figure. It will be over $40 billion for 1996. Since the Tiananmen Square massacre, this figure has increased 1,000%, from $3.5 billion then to about $34 billion now. In terms of tariffs, I think it's interesting to note that the average U.S. MFN tariff on Chinese goods coming into the United States is 2%.
All right, this is starting to make me feel kind of weird, kind of greasy. Not only do I think she looks pretty, now I agree with her economically. It sounds like she's calling for a tariff war and a change in the tariff situation we have with China. It sounds like she's calling for the very policies we're seeing Trump initiate right now. She was just doing it in 1996. That's weird. I'm comfortable with that, but part of me recognizes that's Nancy Pelosi. How are you thinking such favorable thoughts about this woman? Well, it just happened. Was she wrong then, or is she wrong now? Are these tariffs and trying to reach a more balanced tariff situation with some of our biggest trade partners like China? Is this wrecking the economy or fixing it? 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Well, hey there. Happy Friday. Welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Yay. Let's go. So how you holding up through the tariffs? It's been, 2 whole days now. Things seem to be going okay. I mean, it's a little rainy outside, but there aren't planes falling out of the sky. Dogs and cats aren't living together yet. How are things holding up here with local manufacturing? Well, I have a guy on the phone that can tell you about it because he's a guy here locally in manufacturing. Lance is back on. Lance Thrailkill. How you doing? Welcome back to the James Show, sir.
Doing great. Thank you.
All right. Name your business and background to give yourself a little more credibility before we talk about all this heavy economic stuff.
Yes, sir. All Metals Fabricating. I'm the CEO and third generation owner. We are a contract manufacturer. We do sheet metal fabricating, machining, powder coating, and assembly work.
So let's just go ahead and jump right into it. Have y'all been affected by the tariffs yet?
Yes, sir. The pricing index on the metals market responded as soon as Trump tweeted on Super Bowl Sunday. And so we saw a big spike then on aluminum. Steel was following shortly thereafter. So they've pretty much stabilized at around 30 to 40%, of the prices they were at prior to that tweet. So we haven't, the tariffs, they were already anticipating the tariffs. So, they were getting their price increases before they even went into effect.
So you are one of the guys that buys those big spools of metal, whether it's aluminum or steel or whatever?
Yes, we technically buy them in sheets. So the distributors buy the coils is the spool that you were describing, and then they split them into sheets for manufacturers like us.
Yeah, I hope you don't think I know what I'm talking about. I've just seen a lot of videos where like one of them will come unhooked, like the little nylon strap will break when it's being transported on a truck, and it'll roll on the car behind it and just squish it like Godzilla. So that's about my depth of knowledge there. It sounds like, though, y'all were sort of preloading in anticipation of the tariffs, so I guess not a whole lot has changed for you this week?
Yeah, it's been business as usual, which has, been just increased pricing and dealing with that.
So how long is your business, your industry, your peers expecting this to last?
Well, our vendors that we buy the metal from are actually saying they're anticipating 2 more rate hikes. What they're attributing that to, I'm not sure if they're anticipating, more tariffs or if that was, this is pre-tariff and then now they're going to do another one after the tariffs. And also what happens a lot of times is when pricing is going up, companies like ours will buy up a bunch of metal on the upswing to try and, get the material locked in at a lower price. And then on the downswings, you want to run lean so that you're, not, buying up more material on the way down. So when you buy up a bunch of material, supply goes down, demand goes up, economics, price goes up. So that can actually even trigger worse pricing.
Yeah, you're just transferring the pain for later. Well, what about your customers? Are you seeing more or less activities based on these tariffs?
We had a pretty big dip in our orders in February and March, but surprisingly, the last 2 weeks have been 3 weeks rather have been pretty gangbusters. So I'm not sure if it's people trying to order material before more further rate increases. But the instability is what gives them heartburn. For example, Ericsson is one of our big customers, and so they're trying to sell product to AT&T, and we're telling them, hey, this pricing's only good for 48 hours. And they're like, well, we got to give AT&T a price so they can go sell this to all the, the markets. And we can't, just keep going back to them with price increases.
Well, I think the concern is with the uncertainty, people will just cancel projects not knowing how the math will shake out.
Yeah, that is definitely a concern. And a lot of times that'll drive the price down. If demand goes down and supply is up, then that can help reduce the price.
All right. Well, good luck with all that. Thanks for keeping us updated. I like hearing from local manufacturers, Lance.
Yeah, thank you. I'll add one last thing. You have been talking about it. I'll go up a level.
Please do.
I heard an interesting perspective. Well, 2 interesting perspectives. One is that the strategic initiative is to get these international mills to build plants here so that we actually have international companies with domestic plants, which would be a great thing. Another theory is that Trump is intentionally, well, one, you have to clean up the trade deficit. Like it's not fair, right? So that's part of it, but he's also doing that to force the economy into a micro recession, which will cause the feds to reduce rates. We have the big debt terms coming up, so renegotiate the interest rates on the debt at a more favorable term, and then have a bull run on the back 3 years of his presidency. So I thought that was an interesting perspective as well.
Lance, it sounds like you read my notes, because next I'm playing this clip from a guy on TikTok. He goes by the name of American Papa Bear, and he was floating the idea that this is a Trump, not necessarily that it's a crash on purpose, but the crash is sort of the expected part of the process in turning around so many of these other things. And listen to this. This is exactly what Lance just mentioned.
Trump is crashing the stock market by 20% this month, but he's doing it on purpose. And this is why Warren Buffett just said Trump is making the best economic moves he's seen in over 50 years. Now, here's the secret game he's playing, and it could make you rich. So why is he doing this? To push cash into treasuries, which forces the Fed to slash interest rates in May, and those lower rates give the Fed the ability to refinance trillions of debt very inexpensively. It also weakens the dollar and drops mortgage rates. Now, it's a wild chess move, but it's working. Now, you're probably wondering, what about his tariffs? Well, I'll tell you, it's a genius play. It actually forces companies to build here to dodge them. It also forces farmers to sell more of their products here in the U.S. to bring grocery prices way down. We've already seen this with eggs. Now, remember, 94% of all stocks are owned only by 8% of Americans. So Trump, he's taking from the rich short term and handing it to the middle class through lower prices.
See, that sounded like you, Lance. All right. Well, you're not alone then. Do you agree with Lance? Do you agree with American Papa Bear? By the way, Lance Threlkill, thank you for your time. All Metals Fabricating up in Allen. What do you think? 800-288-9227. I think this is easily just a pothole that we're not even going to think about in a year from now. I mean, it may still hurt in 3 months. There may still be some trails behind us of dust in 6 months, but in a year, no one will talk about tariffs again. 800-288-9227. What do you think? 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Well, hey there. Welcome back to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. We'll keep an eye on those storms that are moving through the area, the eastern part of the WBAP listening area, all weekend. We're going to have some ugly weather for, I don't know, around the next 48 or so hours. So you might want to just keep it here on WBAP because you know we'll break in. We just broke in when there was a tornado out by Maybank. We'll break in the next time there's one that you need to know about. So just keep it right here. But we're talking about the economy. In the meantime, it's got a lot of people's attention. It should get your attention if your IRA and 401k are taking a big dip like they did just in the last 2 days. But there's also some green shoots, as they like to say, in the economy. The jobs report that came out this morning was pretty good. We're hearing about some countries want to negotiate. In fact, there was a quote, Donald Trump reported that pretty much every country that's been affected by the new tariffs has called wanting to have a chat about what they can do about it. So the fear-mongering that you see in a lot of the media, I feel like is a little overblown, a little unwarranted. I feel like in a year from now, this is all going to work itself out. What we're experiencing now is a totally expected pothole that happens whenever you do make big changes like this. But for some people, that's just far too optimistic. What do you think? 800-288-9227. Are Trump tariffs wrecking the economy or fixing it? This is Steve in Red Oak. What do you think?
I think the tariff move was brilliant. So if he follows through and has reduction in other taxes as tariffs bring in revenue, in effect what he's done is we're taxing consumption. If I want to buy a luxury automobile that's imported from overseas and I can afford to do that, great, it costs me more. But we build up our own industry, and people that are trying to get by will find that they can buy domestically, and it supports the U.S. industry.
Well, I would be happy if that replaced the income taxes that we pay, but I think we're just going to get hit with both.
I think there will be an adjustment period. If Trump is serious, and I have a tendency to believe him, that he wants to reduce taxes and reduce government expenditure to have income coming into the federal coffers via tariff, gives him the capacity to reduce taxes. So, yes, there may be a period of adjustment and we'll feel a squeeze. But you know what? I really don't need to buy a new cell phone every 2 years.
Well, hang on, Steve. What that kind of implies that you think the tariffs are going to be permanent or at least semi-permanent. If this is going to be a long-running revenue stream where we can go cut other revenue streams, that means you don't think it's just a temporary pothole that's going to bring these people to the table and renegotiate. This is the long-term strategy.
I think that there are some people we're buying from overseas, like China, that tariffs are a long-term thing. I don't think they're going to go, hey, let's level the playing field and have a free economy where everybody trades freely. I think anybody that has a tendency to want to think that way doesn't understand the way some of these people think.
All right. Well, thank you very much. That's Steve in Red Oak. Appreciate your economic theories there, Steve. Let's go to JD in Dallas. You're next up on WBAP. What do you think, JD?
Well, James, you just played an audio clip just a few minutes ago from Papa Bear.
Yes.
And his take on what's happening in the economy, and that Warren Buffett thought that Trump was making the correct move by doing what he's doing. Well, Buffett refuted that today because the fact that this statement has said that Buffett supported Trump has caused Berkshire Hathaway to lose 7% of their value today, which is around $36. And Warren said that that's not the case at all, and he is not making any political statements one way or the other on the politics or the economy until Berkshire Hathaway's meeting in May. So there's a lot of this misinformation floating around out there that's causing a lot of havoc in the economy and on the stock market per se.
I mean, see, the dangerous part about that is bad economic news can be a self-fulfilling prophecy. And so, you almost hear the media cheering for economic pain to happen. They were super happy. Look, they didn't go out and admit it, but they were super happy about all the chaos and destruction that happened with the COVID lockdowns from 2020 because Donald Trump was coasting to a re-election if not for all the chaos that happened that was associated with the virus. So yeah, the media can actually, with even if it's misinformation, if it's perceived to be true and people change their behavior accordingly, they can negatively affect the market.
If Donald Trump could cure cancer overnight, the media would find something wrong with it.
Well, somebody would. All right. Thank you very much, JD in Dallas. Appreciate it, sir. What do you think? 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. All right. Coming up next, we're going to revisit what Trump said about the tariffs before they came on and what Democrats said about similar tariffs before he came on. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Well, hey there. Welcome to the James Show. Happy Friday. I know it's kind of gloomy. I know some of you are getting some real bad weather out there. Stay on top of it. Keep it on WBAP. And if you have to go check in online, WBAP.com has some great radar. You can see if the rain's about to hit you. And then, it's a good time to remember that if you think all this kind of stuff is cool, we're having the 2025 WeatherCon for WBAP, brought to you by Blue Ribbon Roof, and it's coming up April 26th, the last Saturday of this month. It's going to be at the Frontiers of Flight Museum next to Love Field from 9:30 in the morning until 1:30 p.m. So come on out. It's your chance to meet the guy that's walking you through all these dangerous severe weather events. Brad Barton, been doing it for decades here on WBAP. And some other WBAP people will be out there. Hal J, me, Casey Bartholomew, Carla, all the crew, Monty. So come on out. It'll be a good time. Right now we're talking about the economy. It's a huge story today because, as you just heard, the markets closed at 3:30. So now we can definitively say a few things about this market day. 2 really bad days in a row where we now have the Dow officially in correction territory, and the NASDAQ is in bear territory. The simple definitions of that. Correction is when you're 10% below your most recent high, and bear is 20%. So NASDAQ taking a big bath today. NASDAQ's down 11% just since the tariff announcements. Dow's down 9% just since the tariff announcement. So that's what they've done in the last couple of days, and then you want to add in half of the bad half of Wednesday in there. But are you feeling it yet? Probably not. Are you going to feel it if it stays on for a long enough time? And high tariffs are something that it better not be a long-term thing, because it has a tendency to sort of grind trade, internationally speaking, to a halt. It's a barrier. So every transaction that is foregone, it kind of lowers the standards of the people on both sides of the transaction. So this isn't good for us, but this is really not good for China. This is really not good for second and third world countries who are depending on this international trade with their richer, more affluent neighbors across the planet. And so the question is going to be, who can hold their breath the longest? Who's going to blink first? Are we going to just grind this out in a new high tariff regime till kingdom come? I doubt it. But generally speaking, this is not going to be the long-term prospect. We just need to see people coming to the table quick. Now, as a quick reminder, Janet Yellen was the Secretary of the Treasury under Joe Biden, and when he was raising some tariffs, now it wasn't broad across the board on everyone on the planet raising tariffs, and it wasn't gigantic 90% tariffs or 45% tariffs, but he was raising them. There was a concern that was asked of Janet Yellen in an interview over whether or not this will raise prices for Americans, and she said no.
As you have seen, there have been some experts, some groups, the National Retail Federation among them, who've expressed concerns that it will be U.S. consumers who eventually end up paying for these tariffs. As you know, polling shows that rising prices are voters' biggest concern right now. So I'd ask you to speak directly to them. Will American consumers bear the cost of these tariffs?
I don't believe that American consumers will see any meaningful increase in the prices that they face.
As you have seen, there have been some.
There you go. So no, just that was 2024 too, by the way. So just about a year ago, no, tariffs weren't terrible. They weren't going to raise prices on you. Now look at the reporting. CNN is just all over this. I was watching Fox Business on one of my monitors here in the WBAP mothership, and I thought, let's get off the economy stuff for a little while. Let's see what CNN's saying. They're just all talking about the economy. There's almost no noticeable difference. Now, they're not going to go out and they're not talking about the jobs report. They're not talking about the economic issues that are popping up with countries that want to negotiate. Like Vietnam spoke up. He said he had a phone call with some people in the Vietnamese government, and they said, yeah, we're ready to negotiate lower tariffs. What can we do about that? That's not part of the discussion, but they are giving you all the scare quotes and all the red charts and all the red graphs and letting you know that Dow was down 5% today and NASDAQ was down 5% today, 10% over the last 2 days. So the scaremongering is a little over the top in the media. I don't think you should be worried about it. I don't think I think we'll be talking about this about as much as we were talking about. Remember the bloodbath comment from last summer? That was supposed to be the end of it. Literally, Hitler. Well, he'll regret that. Oh, really? We regret that? It'll be like let's just go through like in 1978 when they were reporting on global cooling. Is anybody talking about that? Like in the 80s when they were reporting on acid rain. Anybody still talking about that? Like in the 90s when they were talking about the hole in the ozone layer. Anybody still talking about that? It's funny how all these world-ending, catastrophic, apocalyptic catastrophes never come to pass, and they just move on to the next one. It's sort of the secular version of the phenomenon in the religious world where people are always predicting the end of the world, you know, whether it's Christians or Mayans or whoever else. Yeah, there's always an apocalypse around the corner. How many times does the apocalypse have to not come up before you stop believing these people? So sit tight. Let's give it a little time. And if these tariffs are still in place in a year, I think we're going to have a serious discussion. But right now, let's just see how it works out. Let's see if we can bring some people to the table. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, happy Friday. Welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. I think you might like the results of a new survey that says union membership is down. It's been down pretty much your entire life. But hang on a second. They're not just going to walk off quietly into the night. Gen Z seems to be rebounding and supporting unions more so than the previous millennial and Gen Xers and even baby boomers coming before them. What's going on with that? Let's ask Scott Bairdell from Idea Grove. Welcome back to the James Show. What on earth? I thought maybe unions would just eventually dissipate into the quiet night, but Gen Z likes them? How so?
Big time. I mean, there's a new survey. There's a great website called laborstrong.live, which is a website that's a platform for labor union members, leaders, et cetera, to union news, events, and so forth. Anyway, they did a survey of 1,000 adults asking them about their opinions about unions. And the big takeaway was 77% of Gen Z believe union jobs are better than non-union jobs, and that the majority actually look for whether a job is a union job when they're considering which jobs to apply for and go after.
So what's with the change of heart?
Well, there's just been a lot of change that's kind of made people feel like they need help, that they can't just kind of, hope that they can fend for themselves without organizing. And that's gone back to things like, Amazon and the movement to unionize there. It's happened at Starbucks. But increasingly, this whole issue of AI has become a really, really big concern. You saw the Hollywood writer strike, where that was a union movement that was all about negotiating about what AI would be allowed to do and not do, so it wouldn't just take away all the jobs of Hollywood writers. So there's so much change, and people are looking for help in fighting against this change or finding a way that the change won't just sweep away all these jobs.
Well, I like seeing that there's a generational gap in the fact that the younger people seem to like unions, but once you get over 60, even people in unions, workers in unions, only 44% of them are confident that the union actually represents them properly. So is this just experience proving that unions aren't living up to the hype, or are these just disgruntled people on their way out anyway?
Well, I think you had, generationally, you had unions have a period where they were considered, they were thought of very positively about American workers up till about the late 70s and into the early 80s. And that's when you had Reagan, and you had this movement that became a bipartisan movement towards globalization and free trade. And if that meant jobs going overseas, well, that meant jobs going overseas. And both parties were behind this. It really defanged unions because, if you're competing within the country as it relates to pay for manufacturing job and benefits, that's one thing. But if you're having to compete with workers in, countries like China and others where wages are so much lower, then it really took the rug out from under unions in terms of their negotiating ability. Of course, what's happening now, you've seen a number of things happening in addition to the increasing move towards unions. You've got things like tariffs and other things that are going on to try to bring jobs back to America, to protect American workers. So there's maybe a little buyer's remorse in terms of some of the free trade that's really been, how both parties have approached economics globally for the past 40 plus years.
Well, Scott Bairdell, I roll my eyes when I see surveys like this because I just assume it's an economic illiteracy that rears its ugly head in these surveys. Because if you're only seeing the good part, like, yeah, well, union workshops, they have higher wages and they have better maternity leave and health care and vacation time. Every single one of those is an expense that makes you more expensive to the company, that pushes your job overseas. Like the more amenities that you vote yourself or you're forced onto employers through unions, the more jobs you're sending to other countries, the more unemployment you're creating here? Because it's gotten so bad that I was looking up some of the manufacturing jobs, like the average car manufacturing worker here makes about $30 an hour. In Mexico, it costs the company about $3 an hour. So go ahead, vote yourself all these amenities. You're just crushing manufacturing over here. The unions are one of the worst things for the manufacturing sector in the United States.
Well, that's been the case historically, or that's been the argument against unions, is that they couldn't compete. But then I think what people are saying is, why should we have to compete with those kind of wages? Do we, in some of these countries, essentially you're talking about slave labor. So morally and just for the good of the country, that's what's best. I mean, that's been one of the big arguments for why we should have, in some cases, some very big tariffs to try to level the playing field. I would also say that union workers in many cases it's not what they're concerned about is not just, hey, let's give me higher wages. It's things like just protect my job against AI taking it away, or it's give me a parental leave when a baby's born. Things like that in this country are not guaranteed in the same way they are in many other developed nations. So it's just in general workers feeling like they've been powerless, and they're looking for. They're hoping that unions can do what they've traditionally done, which is to give them power, strength in numbers. And they're hoping that things like tariffs and other, maybe a backlash against some of the abuses of globalization in terms of this kind of all of, these, as you said, these very low salary countries kind of taking away jobs from Americans. Can we create a different kind of economy where it's not just kind of a race to the bottom in terms of compensation?
All right, Scott Varadell, he does marketing over at Idea Grove. Appreciate you diving into this survey with me, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. All right, coming up next, comedian, actor, now a sort of political guy, Russell Brand, been arrested, charged with sexual assault allegations over in the UK. Are you suspicious of the timing of this? Because we've been monitoring his transition from an outspoken lefty activist to now a reformed, born-again Christian who speaks out in favor of kind of Team Red now. And so some people are saying, well, look, details aside, the timing of these accusations is really suspicious. He wasn't, because the accusations go back to 1999. You didn't think there was anything wrong for the last 26 years, and just now you want to press charges? I'm not saying it's wrong or it's right. I'm just saying it's suspicious. Details coming up next on The James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Well, hey there. Happy Friday. Welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Yeah, I know the weather's a little cruddy. It'll be a little gloomy, but we'll get through it. Stick with WBAP. We'll let you know if anything severe pops up, like tornadoes or watches and warnings and whatnot. But if you've been listening to the James Show, we have been documenting the evolution of Russell Brand as he goes from being one of the most outspoken, flamboyant, insulting, degenerate, what's another good word for it? Vulgar comedians on the left to eventually starting his driftward to the center and now even rightward, where he's starting to see through the media lies and he's starting to see past the caricatures of people that he just assumed were Nazis when he gets to know them in real life. And he even made the biggest sin, secularly speaking, is he's now become a Christian. Oh no, now he must be destroyed. And so just about the time Russell Brand announced that he's no longer supporting Democrats and leftists, and he's saying nice things about Trump, and he's saying nice things about Christians and Christianity and the conservative right and even libertarians, and they're just totally off the plantation. In September 2023, 4 girls came forward and accused him of sexual assault. And the dates back all the way to 1999 through 2005. I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm not saying they're lying. I'm just saying what an awful situation we have set up here with the timing, because I don't want to have to be suspicious if women make accusations. I don't want to insert politics into a place where it doesn't seem like politics belong. But how many times does this happen? How many times does this happen where some guys making some progress or maybe switching sides or in some other way not helping out the narrative, so he must be destroyed? Because not only did this happen 26 years ago, or at least the oldest accusation happened 26 years ago, we went through the whole Me Too movement without y'all speaking up against Russell Brand. We went through where it was the cool thing to do, where everyone was coming out of the woodwork and everything was being laid bare, and all these guys have gotten away with it for all these years. They were finally being brought to justice. You didn't think to do it then? Just now that after he becomes a Christian, after he starts saying nice things about Team Red, after he starts exposing the lies of Team Blue, now he's evil. Now you got to take him down. Now that after party wasn't consensual. No, I'm not. Again, I just want to say 1,000 times, I don't know if they're right. I don't know if they're wrong. I don't like having to have politics in this. But we've seen this too many times. All of a sudden, people come up with accusations against Matt Gaetz or Pete Hegseth or the big one, Brett Kavanaugh. We saw it happen with Clarence Thomas, where all their life up until the point where they butt up against Team Blue. They weren't criminals, and now they are. It's why it was hard to believe all the felony charges and whatever cases against Donald Trump last year. It's like, let me get this straight. For the first 77, 78 years of his life, no crime. But in year 78, within 6 months after him announcing he's running for re-election, y'all came up with 90-something charges against him in 4 different jurisdictions and 2 civil trials. It's just not believable. So does Russell Brand fall into that? I don't know, because he was a wild dude and he did some just very vulgar, damn near demonic stuff back in the day. Now, I always thought naturally he's funny. He needs to get his head on straight and his heart's in the wrong place, but I always thought he was funny. I always thought he was really talented. I love Get Him to the Greek. I did not see the Arthur remake, which Garrett says is terrible, so I'm not going to watch it. But it's terrible, because another thing that scares you is if these are successful accusations and they can diminish Russell Brand, they can diminish the political opposition. It's a tool that's going to be used over and over and over. It's a tool that's going to be used again and again. What's to stop anyone from coming up and just saying, hey, yeah, back in 2002, there was some non-consensual action with James Parker or with Mark Levin or with Casey Bartholomew. And so without even having to submit, like the Brett Kavanaugh one just freaked me out because she didn't have a location. She didn't have a date. She didn't know what house she was in. She knew generally what town she was in, and she thinks it was in this summer of this year. So you don't have to have a date, location, really. You don't have to have all the 4 witnesses all denied seeing them two together. So with just no evidence whatsoever, Brett Kavanaugh will forever be remembered and be accused and be stained with these accusations, even if Russell Brand beats these. You think this is ever not going to pop up when you Google his name? You think when he's brought up in another debate table, when he goes on MSNBC or CNN, they're not going to bring this up? Man, this is scary stuff. Either way, it's either scary because the guy got away with it for 26 years or it's scary because it's fake. I don't know which one's worse. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Coming up next, we're going to talk about Trump tariffs. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Well, hey there. Happy Friday. Welcome back to the James Show. Newstalk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Coming up in about 15 minutes, we're going to play Name That Artist for 2 tickets to see AC/DC. That's kind of awesome. The Power Up Tour is going to be at AT&T Stadium April 14th. Yeah, that's 10 days from now. Special guest, Pretty Reckless. For more information, visit livenation.com. But after I do this quick little summary and soundbite here, we're going to be playing the montage. And if you want to go see AC/DC in 10 days and you can name all 10 of the artists, then you need to go ahead and call in. But real quick, before we get to the fun and games here, I have one more piece of business on this tariff talk. One of the reasons I really enjoyed sharing these conversations with you on WBAP is because the rest of the media, when they talk about anything that overlaps with politics, it just tends to be trash. So whenever you get something as black and white and nuanced and almost nerdy, you can expect no good reporting on it. To give you an example, Carolyn Leavitt, the White House spokeswoman, was talking about tariffs, and the AP reporter, she called on him to ask a question. Does he ask a question in a way that tries to get you more information so you can understand the story that's being told? Or is he using his time in the White House press briefing room to try and take down his political opponents a peg?
I'm sorry, have you ever paid a tariff? Because I have.
Excuse me. You make the call. You remember like the old AT&T, you make the call? So here's the guy from the AP. Have you ever paid a tariff?
I'm sorry, have you ever paid a tariff? Because I have. They don't get charged on foreign companies. They get charged on the importers.
And ultimately, when we have fair and balanced trade, which the American people have not seen in decades, as I said at the beginning, revenues will stay here, wages will go up, and our country will be made wealthy again. And I think it's insulting that you are trying to test my knowledge of economics and the decisions that this president has made. I'm now regret giving a question to the Associated Press. Mary.
Because that wasn't a question. That was like a personal attack on Carolyn Leavitt. And he was interjecting himself into the conversation too. Have you ever paid tariffs? Because I have. Oh, well, then she must not know what she's talking about if she hasn't paid tariffs before. I guess you're attacking her credibility. I guess you're attacking her ability to understand it. You're attacking the person, not the argument. You don't even know what he was addressing there because he wasn't even addressing an issue. He was addressing her. He was going after her. He was trying to discredit her, not her arguments, not the philosophical backing, not the tariffs or the way it's written or the amount. Her. That's what makes that such a garbage situation. You're a journalist, sir? For who? The Associated Press? Does that sound like journalism to you? No, let me just try and discredit this young lady because I can't. Well, you can't beat her based on the merits of your position. You got to go attack her. You're a journalist. That's cute. That's real good. All right, now let's get you ready for Name That Artist. If you want 2 tickets to see AC/DC April 14th, and you know all 10 of these songs, you need to go ahead and call in right now. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Here's the 10 songs. Go. All right, so here's the deal. Even if you don't know all 10 and you knew like 6 or 7 of them and you want the tickets, go ahead and call in. On the other side of the break, we're going to play the montage again, and you're going to pull out a notepad file or maybe write it down on a piece of paper. We'll play the montage again so you can write them down next time. But if you knew most of those or all of those, go ahead and call in right now. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. All right, get loaded up, get on hold. On the other side of the break, we'll play the montage again. For those of you who don't want to call in, you're not interested in tickets, whatever, you'll get to play along in your car. But we'll see who can get either all or the most of the 10 artists in today's Name That Artist. And someone's getting 2 tickets to see AC/DC, the Power Up Tour, coming to AT&T Stadium April 14th with special guests, The Pretty Reckless. For more information, visit livenation.com. And sometimes I wonder back because, AC/DC was sort of a little before my time. Like, they came out before I was born, but by the time I was in high school, they had that comeback with the Thunderstruck, and so they were kind of big again about the time I was in high school and then college. And then if you would have told me back then, hey, this old group that came out and put out another album, yeah, they're still going to be doing shows 30 years from now, I'm not sure I would have believed it. So this might be your last chance to go see AC/DC Power Up Tour coming to AT&T Stadium April 14th. If you want to call in and try and win some tickets, 800-288-9227. Name That Artist next on The James Show. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Well, hey there. Happy Friday. Welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. And before your weekend starts officially, which happens in 25 minutes, don't worry, I'm counting down for you. 25 minutes. Before we get out of here, I got to give away these tickets to see AC/DC. We do it on Fridays with a little game show called Name That Artist. Now, this is the more difficult of our game shows. For new people, it sounds easy. We play a montage of 10 songs. You don't have to name the song. You have to name the artist. So let's just go ahead. You guys on hold? I would give out the phone number here, but the phone lines are already jammed. So all you people on hold, get out a notepad file on your phone or get out a piece of paper and a writing utensil of some sort. When's the last time you saw a pencil, Garrett? And we'll play the montage again. You can write them down. For those of you just play along in your car, play along at home. Here's the montage for Name That Artist. All right, so there we go. There's your montage. Can somebody win AC/DC tickets? We'll start with Tracy in Wiley. You ready to play Name That Artist?
Oh, I can try.
All right, let's hear it. Ready, go.
I got Billy Idol in excess.
Whoa. That was number.
What?
You started on number 3.
Yeah, I don't have 1 or 2.
Okay, well, let's hear what you do have.
Okay, I got Billy Idol in excess. I don't have the next one. I'm guessing Cena Easton. No, is it Pebbles? Maybe Pebbles.
No, you're so close,
darn it.
though. It's pretty much the same thing. Tell you what, you hang on. We'll see if we can cycle back to you. Mayor, Fort Worth. You ready to try your hand at Name That Artist?
Yes.
Do you have the list?
No.
You don't sound like a big Sly Fox fan.
Okay, we need the second one.
All right, how many do you know, Mayor?
I only know one, and well, this is probably not right, but I'm guessing the first is maybe Beach Boys, and then the second to last is AC/DC.
Well, you got the AC/DC in there. How old are you?
I'm 7 years old.
Are you a big fan of AC/DC, you are?
Yeah, that's my favorite band ever.
Don't laugh. My kids love AC/DC. They played a lot of Minecraft, and I used to sing TNT because they were always blowing up stuff with TNT. So eventually I played them the song, and then they'd be playing Minecraft singing TNT with dynamite. All right, I believe you, Mayor. Your list feels inadequate. Let me see if someone else does any better. Should I give it to the kid? I can try and come. When did I be so soft-hearted? Vicky in Burleson, you're next up on Name That Artist. You got a list?
Yes, I do.
All right, let me hear it.
Are you ready?
Okay.
Okay, John Parr, Janet Jackson.
Whoa. What? You're just all over the place. Are you going in reverse order or what?
Oh, I have to go in order?
Well, some order.
Well, okay.
Okay, well.
Billy Idol.
Okay, that's like number 3 there.
Okay, Sheila E.
Okay.
AC/DC. Duran Duran. Janet Jackson.
No, there's not a Janet Jackson in there. Hang on a second. Eric, do you have a list?
I've got, I think, 9 of them.
All right, Eric and Richardson, hang on a second. Dave and Granbury, do you have the list?
I've got 8 of them.
Damn it. I appreciate the honesty, David. All right, Eric, if you got 9, I think I'm going to have to give it to you. Let me hear it.
Wings with Paul McCartney.
Yep.
Robbie Dupree.
Good one. I missed that one.
Billy Idol.
Yep.
Sly Fox.
Well, you skipped one there.
That's the one I'm missing then.
Okay. Do the rest. Sly Fox was correct.
Jody Watley.
Jody Watley. I missed that one too. Well done. Go ahead.
Duran Duran.
Okay.
Sheila E.
Yeah.
AC/DC.
Yes.
And John Parr.
Oh, I think we got to give it to him. The one you missed was In Excess, but close is good enough. It works in horseshoes, hand grenades, and name that artist. Eric, you excited to see AC/DC at Texas Stadium?
I am.
All right, is that okay if I still call it Texas Stadium? I know it's AT&T Stadium. I'm just
cool with me.
Just from here, so that's all I know it as. I still call it Wet and Wild too. All right, well, thank you very much. There's your big winner, Eric and Richardson. You're going to hang on hold. Garrett will get your information, and then we email you the tickets these days because it's 2025, and paper tickets are just so 2024. Oh, my God. All right, coming up next, bunch of fun Florida stories to end the week on the James Show. That's next on News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Well, hey there. Welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Listen, this being a Friday show, I didn't want to leave you with just a bunch of nerdy tariff talk or dismal weather reports or anything. I wanted to have a little bit of fun before we got out of here. So let's make fun of our neighbors over in Florida. I like to do Florida stories every once in a while. I just find a whole bunch of crazy stuff that's happening in our favorite dangling state that's hanging out in the Atlantic Ocean, and share it with you just so we can all get a good chuckle at them. They have a guy on death row over in Florida, and his name's Michael Tansey. He's convicted of kidnapping and killing a woman in 2000. He's asking for leniency regarding his execution because he's so damn fat. Now, that's not what it says on the legal brief there. They are classifying this as morbid obesity, but they're saying it would complicate his lethal injection because of his size, and he is a man of size. They say that we don't know if the concoction, the combination of lethal injection chemicals will work on him correctly because, it's just proportionately speaking, how do we know this is going to be the right dose? So now there's a concern that it could cause serious illness, needless suffering. Dude, you're supposed to die. I never get this explanation on why we can't do that. I think it's just you're against the death penalty. You're not really worried about the lethal injection. Because you see this in other states where we can't kill him. We're out of the lethal injection drug. Well, then use fentanyl or something, or go to the states where they're trying to do euthanasia. Whatever Kevorkian had, go borrow some of that. Go borrow some of whatever they're killing their citizens with in Canada. You can't do that. So I don't know if this is going to work. It's actually still up in the air. The attorneys are not responding to comment to the local NBC News affiliate. So I don't really get any more details on his side of the story other than the fact that they're trying to get him out of getting the death penalty because he's so fat. Would that be embarrassing? Is that what you want to be known for? Another Florida story here. This is just a weird overreaction. We have a Florida woman who saw, she has a pond in her backyard. On the other side of the pond, she saw two boys fishing. Well, that sounds like trespassing to her. So she called 911 to report the two boys who were allegedly fishing in her backyard. I don't know why they say allegedly fishing. It's not like fishing's a crime. But while she's on the phone with the 911 operator, she pulls out what's described as a long gun. Long gun? Was that a shotgun? Is that a 30-06? And she makes them put their hands up, and then she makes them lie face down on the ground. And so these kids are just shaking. They're worried for their lives. They're like 11 and 12 years old. They don't tell you the age because they're minors, but judging by the blurred out images in the body cam footage, they look like they're maybe 12 at the most. This lady was out there with a pellet gun. A pellet gun? Oh my God, you're going to get yourself killed, lady. Look, here's a little tip. If you're going to brandish a weapon and pretend like it's a deadly weapon and you have a pellet gun, you are escalating to a situation of lethal force, and you don't have lethal force. Oh my God, that's just so dumb. Does it get dumber than that? Well, of course it gets dumber than that. We go to Palm Beach. This is from BocaNewsNow.com. A lady is driving because she's going to go to the country club. She's got a golf lesson. And I think she was running late because she may have hit and run over a golfer on the course. This is still allegedly. It hasn't been adjudicated now. So don't sue me now. But according to the paperwork that's on Boca News Now, it looked like she maybe had something to drink beforehand. Maybe, I don't know, was it bottomless mimosa brunch day or something at the country club? But her excuse, and I always find these this sense of entitlement just jaw-dropping. Her excuse for hitting the guy and then running off, cops obviously going to catch up with her pretty quick, was that she was late. She's late for her golf lesson. Ah, Yes. If you're late for your golf lesson, then you don't have to stop when you hit another human being and run over them with your car. Your very nice Mercedes, by the way. No, it is. Oh, golf lesson. Did you say golf? Oh, well, that's important. You got to work on that slice. Keep it moving along now. We'll just get this guy some medical help and we won't bother you any further. Just, can you make up something better than that? I find it hard to believe that these people are thinking, maybe I should just tell them the truth, when the truth is so damn bad. For my next Florida story, we go to Palm Bay, Florida. There's a shopping center off Interchange Drive. I have no idea where that's at, but it looks like just a little strip mall. And so there was a guy that was just hanging out there dressed as a clown. And he's asking people for money, I guess. I don't know. It says he was harassing customers as they were going in and out of stores. I assume he was panhandling or something. I don't know. Maybe he's just a guy that's all cracked out and saying weird things. You see that sometimes. But he doesn't sound like that when he gets arrested. The cops show up and they arrest the guy, but he's in a clown suit. And when they put the video on the website, they bleep out all the cussing with clown horns. And so now I'm not even, my ire, my focus, my laughs aren't even for the idiot that's getting arrested in a clown suit. It's how much fun is it being the news guy in Florida? If you've got to go out there and, you know, for most, I've worked at TV news before. For most stations, like, how are we going to fill up this half hour? Well, for Florida, that's got to be easy. They're like, look at this cornucopia. Look at this plethora of fantastic material we have to work with. They're only working on ways to jazz it up. How do we do this and make it distinct from all the other dumb clown arrest stories that we've had? They probably had 20 this month. And they get so creative with it. They're like, let's put horn sounds on it. So just enjoy with me now. This is supposed to be body cam footage for a news outlet in Florida, Palm Bay, and they use the clown horn for the beep. Is this just hilarious or what?
Don't go anywhere, Chris. You're not free to leave. No, you're not free to leave. You're under arrest now. Put your stuff down. What? Rob me? Put your stuff down. Put your stuff down. Step it up. Honestly. Turn over now. Go on. Turn over now. You. Turn over.
Honk you. So you see grown men in a mortal struggle, but this funny little shecky horn.
Stupid.
I don't know why I enjoyed that so much, but it's a guy. The body cam footage, the guy's dressed like a clown. What's he doing? I don't know. I have no explanation for any of this. I just enjoy it quite a bit. All right. Thank you very much for hanging out with me. That's going to do it for today's edition of Florida Stories. God, that shouldn't be so fun. All right, Blue Ribbon Roofing's 2025 WeatherCon from News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3, and Fox 4 is going to give us a little support out there. It's happening at the Frontiers of Flight Museum, Saturday, April 26th, 9:30 in the morning to 1:30. I'll be out there. Hal J, Brad Barton, a bunch of other people from WBAP and Fox 4 will be out there. So come on out, say hi. It's absolutely free. And over the weekend, remember the James Show when you're locked in the handicap stall or you're trying to escape or you're mowing the lawn and you need to be entertained for a little bit. Go check out the interview I did with Frank Caliendo yesterday. We have the podcast of all the shows from this week up available. Doesn't cost anything. Find it at WBAP.com, WBAP app. I also put the video with Frank Caliendo on the WBAP Facebook, YouTube, and X feed, Twitter feed, whatever we're calling it. All right, go have a good weekend. Come back Monday. We'll do this again. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3.